As an academy owner, you work hard to build trust with your students, their parents, and your community. But trust isn't something you claim, it's something you prove and earn. That's where Academy Safe comes in. We help academies like yours stand out with verified safety standards. Background checks for all staff, U.S. Center for Safe Sport certification, concussion training, defibrillators on site, CPR, first aid and AED certification, security cameras, rank and lineage checks, and verification of business insurance. Join the trusted martial arts registry that's redefining safety throughout North America. Lead by example. Show parents you're accredited with Academy Safe.
Hello, and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts, typically focused on Kempo, but we love all the martial arts around here. As always, I am your host, Reggie Darden, and I am overjoyed and excited. And of course, it wouldn't be a podcast if my dogs didn't go. So we'll just muscle on through here. But I am excited to have my Hapkido teacher on with me today, Mr. Adam Knorr, and we are going to get into his journey and whatever other things that we decide to get onto. Then we'll get onto that as well. But I usually start things off with just giving a little bit of my background. I currently train in 5 different martial arts, American Kempo being the primary one. I also train in Capoeira, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and of course, Hapkido. So I stay pretty busy. I also have some experience in Taekwondo and I did a little bit of boxing in the Army as well. So I'm just a busy guy, and with the podcast and work and life and 2 dogs and a fish and a hamster, things are pretty hectic around here, but we make it work. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So now we are going to turn it over to our esteemed guest here. So tell us how the martial arts found you. Where did it all start, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Okay, wow, you're gonna go way back in the day. So, hi, my name's Adam Knorr. I've been training in Hapkido for about 30 years now. I'm was 8 years old when I started. Back in, I believe it was 1994. So I've been at it for a minute. Like a lot of young people, I started because it was sort of a fun thing inspired by watching TV shows and stuff and seeing cool martial arts stuff on it when I was little. Started with my dad took me to classes, because he'd seen that I liked that sort of stuff on TV and whatever. So he took me to classes, and I really enjoyed it. Wouldn't have still been stuck with it 30 years later if I hadn't been enjoying it. So, but as far as how I started out, that was kind of the genesis of it was being a young snot-nosed kid, just wanting to ape the stuff that I saw on TV, and I think that a lot of people start that way, or maybe that's just me, but I hear that not too terribly infrequently. So.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people that got started because of the martial arts movies and TV shows. I mean, for me, I grew up watching Black Belt Theater and Kung Fu Theater and all the Shaw Brother movies and Golden Harvest movies and stuff back in the day, and then moving up to movies like The Last Dragon and Enter the Dragon, and I guess pretty much anything that had the word dragon in it was definitely something to get me interested in the arts. But then fast forward to the 90s, and I saw The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman, and that's what got me interested in Kempo. And then fast forwarding a little bit more past that, seeing the movie Only the Strong with Mark Dacascos, and that's what got me into capoeira. But to bring it back around to Hapkido, seeing the best of the best movies with Philip Ree and Eric Roberts and that and the not often, at least in my opinion, not often talked about enough best of the best too, got me interested in Hapkido, and so I've always had an interest in it, and getting into having like the black belt magazines and stuff back in the day, inside kung fu magazines and things like that, and once again dating myself, the Panther production videos back in the day, the training videos. I remember seeing videos about the Hapkido cane techniques and things like that, and so I've always
Yeah.
had an interest in Hapkido, and I mean, who doesn't love wrist locks and arm locks and stuff? So that's always been my thing. So
Yes, sir.
getting back to your start, was there anything in particular as far as the school that you started with, and I guess I should say, well, have you trained in any other arts, and was that first school a Hapkido school?
Yeah. So yes, when I first started, I did first start in Hapkido. Now, I'm from a originally a very small town, like about 10,000 people. So when I started, that was the only martial arts game in town, uh, as far as traditional martial arts are concerned. Now, I did a little bit of wrestling later. I did a little bit of uh, I've dabbled here and there in trying to learn certain things from some other martial arts. Tried a little bit of Wing Chun. Not terribly my thing, but it was interesting. I learned some stuff. Also, another thing that is uh, the organization that my school that when I first started belonged to was called the World Hapkido Association under a man named Chan Ku, and he also taught Taekwondo. And at that point, for his own sort of benefit, uh, treated the his Taekwondo partition and his Hapkido partition as having to kind of play nicely with each other. So we had to, in essence, for whatever reason, because Taekwondo is a lot more, and really is still more popular than Hapkido, we had to learn a bunch of Taekwondo stuff. I remember we even had to learn some of the forms, etc. Um, it was not really my particular cup of tea, but we had to learn some of that as well, just because he wanted the two halves of his business empire, if you will, to kind of play nicely with each other. Um, so now, post 2005, the both the school that I started at, as well as a bunch of associated schools, up to and including my school, the school that you're a part of, Reggie, is now part of a different organization called the American Institute of Modern Hapkido Instruction, where we don't um, Hugh as closely. And I've never made you learn a form or anything like that. But so there was a time whenever we uh, did have to hew a little closer in that particular regard. Um, Again, I'm not gonna say that was uh, well, I'll put it this way. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how the other side lives, so to speak. I learned a lot so that I can more intelligently speak to things like when, we have students who go to tournaments or something, they've had forms competitions. We don't have forms. And, I've had students go, what is this? It was a forms competition. I go, that's not a thing that that we've got. That's not a thing that we participate in. Um, we can do the sparring competitions and such, but I've swum in that lake a little bit, but Hapkido is built a little different. So
No, that's one of the reasons why I like training. Training with you is that we don't have to do forms. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love doing forms, but considering that
sure.
I have a lot on my plate, having to memorize more forms is not not exactly something
Sure.
that I'm itching to do. So so that's definitely
Yeah,
one of
I'm
the
not
benefits of
saying
training.
if it's good or bad or up or down or you know yeah, beneficial or not beneficial. It's just not a thing that we choose to focus our particular time on in Hapkido. So
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, and that's totally fine. It's uh, that's why there's so many. It's good to have choices in schools and styles and all that. We can find what fits for us individually. So I would say that you're in a unique position that you've essentially been with the same teacher, same kind of organization your whole way through. That's especially for going so long. I would think that's not the norm. So
yeah, it's I had my one main teacher from the time that I started uh, until essentially he died. Now, other people from the organization, of course, taught me things and such, but it was mainly that organization that was part of my Hapkido training. Now, like I said, we were under one umbrella organization at first when I started, and then in 2005 we switched to a different one. Um, but yeah, in terms of continuity, there was definitely a lot of continuity for my Hapkido training over the course of the years. So you're right, absolutely.
and so can you talk about why the switch? Uh, of course, if there's too much I don't know. I guess for lack of better term, drama. We can skip that. But if you can,
There was a little bit of drama. I don't want to get too much into it because old wounds and some of those have started to heal cross organizationally in the past several years. So I don't want to stir too much of that up again. Um, in case anybody from the old organization watches this and stuff. I don't want to create any more bad blood. But yeah, no, there was some differences in approach and mindset that have that were a little bit in question there that uh, ended up with the creation of the AIM High, the American Institute of Modern Hapkido Instruction, that we're now a part of today. Um, it, yeah, it's not one of those things that's really bears too much talking about. It's just differences in uh, pedagogy and some in business practices that ended up seeing us go our separate ways. Again, some of those rifts have started to heal in recent years, and we've started to become a little bit more cordial with each other, which is good.
very nice, very nice, very nice. All right. Well, then we will take it back to the competing side of things. Did mention the tournament thing as you were coming up? Was did you do a lot of that, or kind of how much involvement
I
in?
did some. Yeah, I did some. I competed some in tournaments. That was again going back to when I was coming up through, up until I think I was about second on. I might have been third. We're in with the World Hapkido Association, where he tried to make us hew more closer to Taekwondo. So we had to uh, do more of what his taekwondo people were doing. Um, so part of that was, taekwondo has a big emphasis on going to tournaments and competing because it's more sport oriented. So I did do some of that back in the day. That was never really where my um, passion was in terms of uh, doing the point sparring because uh, I mean you've heard me say this before. Hapkido's uh, attitude towards sparring is just a little bit different. We don't necessarily care if we get touches on people. We don't necessarily care if we get hit while we are executing whatever strategy or uh, end game we have in mind. But it was good. I definitely learned things, and we still keep that skill set alive and aim high. It's not a thing that you may never have heard me mention it, but it's one of the things for fifth degree black belt. They will set up uh, mock um, tournament style, point style sparring that then the person who is testing for a fifth degree black belt has to be able to correctly officiate between two different combatants, um, just to make sure that we can do such things and that we can, like, one, of course, we would have been in that situation previously coming up through it, but then also when you're going for the higher rank that you demonstrate that you have actually absorbed those skills so that you could, you know, take students to a tournament, officiate in that tournament, be uh, useful in case you and or your students want to uh, participate in such uh,
Gotcha.
pursuits. So
Gotcha.
uh,
That's pretty
yeah,
interesting.
it's
I've never heard that before for a ranking, belt ranking, and uh, a lot of course, when you get in, especially when you get into the upper ranks, it's important to be able to know how to teach, and uh, so
right.
the hires up will test you on that, but testing kind of the other aspects, being able to run a tournament or judge a match. That's kind of the first. That's really the first time I can think of hearing that in any system. So I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things of we want to make sure that because we do spend so much time with a sort of different mindset towards sparring that is not necessarily focused on touches and points and stops and starts, that just because that's the case, that we don't get out of the practice and that we don't lose that skill set so that, when people want to go to tournaments, that we can make sure that we're able to say, okay, here's how you prepare for such things. These are the sorts of rules that you might expect. I mean, every tournament's a little different, but these are the sorts of rules you might expect. These are the kinds of differences that you're going to have to contend with that are going to be different than the sort of normal, more I would say more rough and tumble sort of sparring that Hapkido gets into.
Gotcha. So in the going back with the tournament thing, so that just never really grabbed you. Uh, no
Uh,
kind of inspirations in kind of continuing that life.
yeah, I did it some, like I said, but I did it some when I was in my teens and such. Just because teenagers they try everything and they also like to prove themselves. I was no different than anybody else when I was that age. So, I did some and uh, fought some and had some trophies at one point. I don't know if they're still around somewhere, but in terms of continuing that to this day, uh, I myself don't really particularly feel like competing myself. Now, as you know, I mention it fairly consistently in class that there are tournaments. If you want to go to tournaments, please let me know. I will get you the information. We will go to them. And we have had people from our school go to tournaments, uh, compete in them. I've had people win their divisions, etc. So uh, we don't dislike tournaments. We don't not like them. So, me personally, do I want to go and compete in point sparring at this point in my life? Not really. I particularly find that super appealing myself, but again, I know that other people do, and that's great. That's great, and I'm absolutely there to support it.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I competed uh, back in the day in a handful of tournaments, and I got disqualified in every one. So I'm quite proud of that, and I don't need to lug
Well,
around
you
any.
did one recently, didn't you?
Well, I did my
You did a
first
tournament recently, right?
jiu-jitsu tournament back in September, and more so just I finally gave in to peer pressure. When I got into jiu-jitsu, I really had no interest in competing, and but just the team and everybody just kind of got me fired up and said, well, you have to at least try it once. So I did, and handily got my butt beat, but that's fine. In jiu-jitsu, they say you either win or you learn. So I got a lot of learning that day.
That's
But
good.
I did get a taste for it, and I will compete again. I need to get me some gold. So I will compete again, probably in March. I think is the next one. Whether that leads to a lifetime of competing, I don't know. It's it's a lot of money to get beat up. So I'm not really sure, but we'll see. I do want to get at least one more in, and then we'll see how we go from there. But, as far as kind of an open tournament with karate or taekwondo or whatever that is, I don't know if I'll ever do that again. Maybe just for the forms part of it, because I didn't do the forms back when I was young. So maybe just to do it once, just to say, okay, I did it, or maybe like a weapons division or a self defense division or something like that, just to say that I've done it. But yeah, I don't really have a big aspiration to be a competitor or anything like that. So. And then plus, I don't have any time for that. So
I hear that.
anything
I
else,
hear that.
I just don't have the time. All right, so let's move into the teaching side of it. When did you get involved with the teaching part of it, and was that something that you were always interested in, or was it thrust upon you as many of my previous guests that they were thrown into the fire and just ran with it from there?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and the answer to that question is going to depend on what part in my journey you want to sort of mark as the start of when I was teaching. So when I was much younger, like in college, and I was still actually training at the school of my master, the man who taught me. Uh, it was just sort of part of the culture there that the black belts, whenever class time came around, would just sort of look at each other and one of you would step up and teach the class. Um, he didn't teach all or even most of the classes directly necessarily. Um, it was just one of the black belts would step up and teach the class. So when I got to be 20 or so, I just started teaching because I was there. People were looking around like who's going to take it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's me. And then I was the main teacher for one of the three classes for a few years in there. I would generally do it. But again, that was under the auspices of his roof, so to speak. Then I moved down here to Texas in 2009. And at that point, there was another school in McKinney that belonged to our same organization. So believe it or not, 2 days a week, every week for a couple years, I would drive all the way up to McKinney twice a week to help him out. This other gentleman who had a different school. His name was Brad. Well, his name still is Brad Christina. He isn't dead, but helped him out for a couple years just so I could keep training and participating and helping out other people. Um, so I'd help him kind of mentor his students. So I was doing that for quite a while, and I don't miss that drive. I'll tell you, that's the one thing about those days that I definitely don't miss was having to drive all the way up to McKinney from Fort Worth twice a week, because that's about an hour and a half drive
Oh
during
yeah,
rush hour.
I can
Uh,
definitely relate.
uh,
There's a reason. One of the reasons why I'm only training in 5 arts and not not more is because
sure.
a lot of the other schools are quite a bit of ways away from where I'm at, and so for those that are not familiar with the Dallas Fort Worth area, uh, pretty much anywhere you go in Dallas Fort Worth takes an hour. So that
Yeah.
and that's not without traffic. So
Right.
yeah,
And
it
and it
makes
was a lot of traffic, and it was the other side of the Metroplex, so
yeah,
it was
yeah.
hard.
I don't
But
don't envy that. So then I would assume
then
that uh, because of the traveling that uh, well, I guess I should just ask. So what was the thing that made you want to run your own school?
right. So I was in the middle of doing that. I've been doing that for a few years at that point after I'd moved down here, and then at that point, I had a good friend who wanted, he posted something on social media about, you know, taking his son to get martial arts training and just really being unimpressed with all of the places that he'd taken his son to get martial arts training and not really uh, liking at least the ones he'd found. Right. Again, there's a million different options in the Metroplex. I'm sure he could have found something that he liked eventually, but he hadn't liked any of the ones that he had found so far. Um, so I just sort of saw that and I thought about it and I replied after a bit and I said, if you want, I can show your son some stuff. Because again, he was a good friend, and so I can show your son some stuff if because I think he'd been saying that his son was being bullied and stuff like that too. Like I can show him some stuff. Pretty I'm pretty confident in my ability to at least give him enough skills to where he's not going to be pushed around and uh, not going to be in as big of feeling like he's as much of a target as he was. And then my friend said, "Oh, that sounds great. Let's do that." Uh, I said, "Okay. Well, do you? Because it sounds like you're actually wanting me to like straight up teach him martial arts." And he's like, "Yeah, no, I want you to actually teach him martial arts." I'm like, oh, "Okay." So we kind of put some stuff together, and we had uh, kind of a little tiny setup in a church. I don't know. Were you there when we were still in the church?
Yes.
Had,
Well,
or
I so I came for a trial class, and then I guess took about a year before I actually came back and signed up. But yeah, you were still
Sure.
in the church at that point.
When we were in the church, yeah. So that was a place that we kind of found to be um, the so I started teaching this young man a little bit of stuff and started kind of getting him up to speed. And then his dad, my friend, just kept watching. Was going, "This looks like fun. Can I do this too?" I'm like, "Okay, sure. That sounds great." And then he started and he got some of his friends together and said, "Do you want to take some martial arts too?" And I said, can these people come too?" And I said, "Okay." And then eventually it just got to the point where I was like, well, I've got more than a few, and there's uh, no real reason at this point why I should keep driving to McKinney all the time if I actually can start building my own student base. Because at that point I was out of school and everything, and I was working at that point. I said, there's no real reason that I should keep driving out to the McKinney all the time and working, and also trying to just sort of view these other students that I have as sort of a side hustle, right? Maybe this should actually be uh, what I actually devote my time to is my own students. So then from there, we started, growing and everything like that. And uh, then later on, Corinne, my wife, who she started the Kinder Keto, the little bitty kids sort of martial art and movement program, and we've kind of grown from there.
Very nice, very nice. I like how it's uh, the viral nature of growing the school. Usually, it's I mean one. I always say a family that trains together stays together. So getting the father and the children in, and then bringing everybody else in from there, I think is a good way to grow. I mean, of course, flyers and advertisements and all that stuff is great, but word of mouth does better than anything else. So I like that.
Absolutely.
And so with let's so at this point you are a seventh degree, like
Yes, sir. Seventh degree.
seventh degree. Okay. So throughout all of your training there, what was the most difficult testing for you?
That's a good question. So one of the things, and I don't know that this is necessarily the thing that I've struggled with the most ever, but I can definitely tell you that one of the things that I've struggled with the most was my testing for fifth degree black belt, which was it incorporated, it wasn't the whole testing, but a big part of it was displaying proficiency with the martial arts rope weapon, or the Hapkido rope weapon, which I don't know if you've seen me work on it too much. I'm not really, it's not exactly my best weapon, personally. I'm much more comfortable with the short stick or the cane. Uh, uh, Knife is fine, but the rope is just, my brain doesn't really process it terribly well. Uh, so that was really, really difficult. I remember my master teaching me something, like how to use it, and I would try, and he'd try to teach me the same thing again, and I'd try, and he'd try to teach it to me again, and this would go on for, it seemed like years at a time where I'd be working on something. I remember having uh, brooms sitting on top of tables and stuck into mats and stuff to simulate an arm so that I could practice wrapping it up, because that's just, my brain is not built toward making the Hapkido rope weapon an easy one for me. Um, but I kept at it, and I will say I'm better at it now after practicing with it a long time. But Is it my favorite one? No. This last testing where I got to choose what I did. Did I use the rope? No, I did not. I used the cane and I used the short stick. That's what I used. So the rope is it's a different beast. Of course it's flexible, so it's all about sort of weight and anticipation and uh, kind of give and take. There's no real uh, ability to strike with it. It's all a grappling weapon, and it's all about sort of baiting something into something else and then letting it kind of flow through so that it essentially wraps somebody up to where they're tied in a knot before they even recognize what's happened to them, which is cool on paper. I mean, it's great whenever somebody's good with it. That's, it hurts plenty, but my brain's wired toward different stuff, at least primarily. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I haven't done a ton of weapon stuff in my training. I've told before on the show that working with the staff, um, I will swing it around in my living room, and I have high ceilings, and I got a lot of room in my living room, but there is still furniture and and other things
yes.
around, and the occasional dog likes to come into my path. So yeah, the staff has been moved to the garage where I can do slightly less damage. So uh, yeah,
I like staff because staff to me is, at least the way I use staff, I use it like a bigger, longer cane that doesn't have a hook on it. So that's how I use it. That's not necessarily the way that everybody uses it, but that's how I use it. So,
very nice, very nice, very nice. So something that I've been asking my guests here as of lately, since there isn't a kind of universal standard among the not just Hapkido but the martial arts in general about what it takes to be a black belt, what it means to be a black belt, what uh, is required to earn a black belt. I've been asking my guests in their viewpoint, in their thought processes, kind of what is your take on being a black belt, earning a black belt, what it means to
yeah.
keep a black belt, what makes you worthy of a black belt. Just kind of your kind of general thoughts on a black belt.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, no, and that's a good question. And that's a question that I've actually sat and thought a lot about. And again, you're right. There's no sort of one answer that you can give that's going to be right for everybody, for every art, for every organization. But to me, what it means to be a black belt is the question of, have you transitioned in your skills, both physically and also intellectually, into a phase where you recognize and are capable to be a primary resource for others, right? So a black belt is not necessarily somebody who's going to go out there and win every fight. That's a black belt may or may not win a given fight. Uh, I think it would be naive to say that that's what the litmus test is that you're as hard as hard can be. But in my mind, what a black belt is that you are held to such a standard that you can hold yourself forth to your own students, sure, if you have them, but even if you don't have your own students, to the rest of the students in the school with you, as an example, to answer their questions, to serve as a resource for them, to be able to teach them things that they do not yet know, to be able to, one of the things that um, really was a kind of crucible for me when I started teaching was, I'd teach something, and then somebody would say, well, but why is it that way? Or why is it not this other way instead? Or what would happen if this unexpected thing happens, right? And I would have to then ask myself that question. How do I answer that, right? And the black belt to me is the one who actually can look back into their skills and has this sort of uh, depth of knowledge and also sort of cohesive enough and interconnected enough understanding of their knowledge of the martial art that you go, okay, well, the reason why you don't do it that way is because it might not work the way you thought it would, or actually you can do it that way. That's just not what we're practicing right now, or uh, you might do it that way, but then somebody would get hurt, or et cetera, et cetera. So being able to answer those sorts of questions that might not have initially occurred to you, but occurred to somebody else is part of it. But again, overall, to me, it's just the question of um, has your again your physical skill, but also your intellectual grasp over stuff transitioned to such a point that you can serve as a primary resource. Not just sort of train people, give them pointers, because everybody can do that, right? You're not a black belt in Hapkido yet, but you do that. You give people pointers, you give people um, information based on what you've seen and what you've absorbed, and that's a good thing. But a black belt is someone who that's their sort of primary mode, right? It's not that they don't learn anything anymore, of course they do, but their primary mode is that they are serving as that resource. They are serving as uh, the teacher, the question answerer, the one who might make mistakes, but who knows the stuff to help those coming up after him get by. That's why I don't know if you heard me talking to Curtis, one of our other students, the other day. I don't that one of the parts of testing for red, which is the rank right before black, to black. One of the things that you do there is you actually take a written test. It's the only time you take a written test in all of Hapkido, but you take a written test over essentially stuff that can be asked, in a paper and pen format. Like, what is this type of technique? What is um, this kick? What is the third tenet of the martial arts, et cetera, et cetera. Stuff that could be um, reduced to that sort of, I hate to call it a quiz, but quiz sort of question to test whether or not the person, if they want to be a black belt, right, to test whether or not they have the sort of knowledge that they would need to have in order to serve in that particular role, which is why once you get that black belt, that first black belt, for the next test, you have to turn in a written book that has all of your techniques in it, all of your sugi, your self-defense techniques, all of your kicks, all of your other strikes, everything that, again, you can render into language that you know about the martial arts. You write that up and you turn it in, not because we need it, because, we all have our own books, but so that the black belt will have it at that point. Right? So if they haven't done it before now, you're a black belt, show us that you have the resources in case you have a brain fart, right? Uh, somebody needs to learn green belt number 6 and you've brain farted it, well, that happens, right? That's why you have your resources. So show us that you've provided that for yourself so that you can, again, serve as the sort of leader, serve as the teacher, serve as the one um, who helps out the others. And now, of course, is that going to come with a certain amount of increased expectation of a black belt has to be, sort of more skilled than a white belt? Of course, right? Of course it does. But if you're going to ask me, I mean, that's true also of, a green belt has to be more skilled than a white belt, right? So uh, what is the thing that makes a black belt in particular different than every belt that's come before? I would say that it is that the black belt is knows that they're there to be a teacher, to be the one who can answer the questions, to show people what's next. Um,
Gotcha.
that's what it is for me, anyway.
Gotcha. No, I like that. I like that. And that's you've touched on it as well. It's with that question, there isn't a right or wrong answer. Everyone has their different interpretation, and that's important. And I want to get all those different perspectives on that, and maybe we can kind of triangulate a semi-common
Sure.
common SOP for all the martial arts in general, but uh, we have to get those ideas and those perspectives out there for us to work get on that road towards unity or whatever you want to call it. So I like that. I like that.
Absolutely.
All right, so we are going to move into what I call our lightning round here. I've got a few little questions for you as we head towards wrapping up our time today. So the first one being, do you have a favorite technique?
Do I have a favorite technique? That's a broad category. Well, I will say that. Can I say a category of technique? Because
Sure.
I really think that sugi. Now you know what that is. Your listeners might not. Sugi are self-defense techniques, which are responses to uh, an opponent's attack, which can take any number of forms and can be throws and takedowns. They can be just sort of breaks or dislocations of arms. They can be wrist locks, like you were saying earlier. Um, they can be all sorts of different things where it's always or at least once you learn the initial five and kind of learn what they are. After that, they're always responses to an opponent's attack, and um, kind of I really like, again, I don't know that I could pin down one of them in particular as a favorite technique, but I do really like that group of skills because they're uh, something that you can really just sort of make your own and practice in a lot of different ways that um, uh, are in some ways only limited by your imagination. Um, so that's probably my favorite group of techniques, though. If you're going to hold my feet to the fire and ask me which one in particular, I'd have to think about it for a while.
Gotcha. No problem. No, this being a Kempo show, we're definitely kindred spirits in that Kempo is very, very focused. I would say its primary focus is self defense techniques, and so yeah, asking that question is very tough for the Kempoist, and it's like which is your favorite child sort of question, but
Right.
think it's a fun thought experiment. So I like it. I like it. All right. The next question, since we don't have any forms in our Hapkido training, there, I'm going to pull an audible here and change the question. So, typically, the next question is what's your favorite form and or set, and if you potentially do have one, you can throw that in here. But if not, then we're going to change the question to what is your favorite piece of martial arts media, whether that be a movie or TV or video game or book or
Oh, interesting.
anything like that.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, how about I answer the question of what martial arts was I into when I started that initially
No, that'll work.
inspired me to when I was gonna be when I was a kid, and that was I was watching Batman the animated series when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
right.
I loved that show. And my dad was said to me, "You want to watch or you want to go and learn martial arts so you can be like Batman?" And I was like, "Yeah," because
Very
I
nice.
was, you know. 8 years old at the time. So that was my favorite one then, and even today, I'll still a guilty pleasure. I try to get my kids to watch that show sometimes.
Very nice.
I don't know that it's got spectacular martial arts, but in the grand scheme of things, but it's near and dear to my heart anyway.
No, it's a great series. So you are doing right in the parenting department by exposing your kids to that. So good on you there. I like it. I like it. All right. Then the next question is, what is your favorite weapon, or do you have a favorite weapon?
Yeah. So yeah, favorite. Hold my feet to the fire. Make me choose. Probably going to be the tonbong, the short stick. I've had you. I'll learn a little bit of it. It's a stick that's about that long, right? Thereabouts. It's supposed to be about the length from your elbow to your wrist. Um, on paper, it doesn't. There's a little bit of give in there as far as it can be a little longer, a little shorter. Uh, that I really, really like it because one, it just sort of functions. It sounds again silly, like it's from a movie or something, but it functions as an extension of your hand. You can do most of the same things with a tonbong that you can do with your hand, up to and including you can do some grappling maneuvers with it. Um, but of course, it hits a lot harder, and it doesn't take no for an answer nearly as easily as a hand does. It insists a little more than a hand will. Um, and of course, it's just like I said, you can accelerate it by using your fingers so that it's gonna just smash into something pretty hard if you want it to. And also, it's not a thing that's come up so far, but the Hapkido theory on weapons is a weapon is whatever is significantly like that weapon, right? So I don't necessarily need to have, nor do I carry around my actual tonbong, because one, that would be a little silly. I would get strange looks from that. Uh, but also, I don't need that particular object. I can find something that is significantly like that, and which is a good thought exercise to do sometimes, to sort of look around and say, what in this room can I use this weapon, and what skill set out of my weapons training would that use? Um, and Tonbong is one of the ones that you can find a stick that's roughly that long, or something that is stick-like that is roughly that long, and being able to then take that skill set and apply it through that found object is pretty cool. Um, which is not as that's probably what makes the Tonbong for me beat out the cane. Is the cane, you can't always find something that is exactly like the cane. You might find a stick of similar length, which can do a lot of the same things, but it's not going to have the hook always. So I do really love the cane, though. Cane is probably my second favorite weapon.
Very nice. Very nice. I like it. I like it. All right. Next question. If there is anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non-fictional, who would that be?
Oh man, oh man. Uh, Probably people who'd put me through the ringer, honestly. Uh, Living or dead, fictional or non-fictional.
And that can include maybe people that you have already trained with, or just anybody ever
Right. Okay.
is
Yeah.
is
Well, I
fair.
mean, part of me wants to say things like Batman or Bruce Lee, right? Because they're, great martial artists, and also Batman was my inspiration for getting into martial arts. But part of me also wants to say dead, wants to say I'd love to train with my past mentor one more time, because he was a really important figure in my life, and taught me a lot about martial arts, and also in some ways kind of served as a surrogate father for me. Um, so part of me, really, if you held my feet to the fire, I'd probably say that, just for sentimental reasons, to be able to kind of one last time be able to train with him, because uh, he'd gotten cancer years before he died, and hadn't really been in as good a shape as he declined. And then the last time I saw him was right before COVID happened. And so then we did talk again, having our organizational board meetings and stuff um, after that um, on um, Teams or Google Meet or whatever it was. But then he died really before we were out of the pandemic fully. And I never got to see him again after that. So, probably if you're gonna give me that, I'm probably gonna use that ability not uh, to train with Batman, unfortunately, but probably just to have one more ability to see and interact with somebody who is so important in my life. So,
Very nice. I like it. I like it. All right, we've got our one more question here, and then we'll
all
head
right,
to our final piece of business. So the last question is, what is something that either motivates you, always motivates you to train, and or something that you want to put out there to motivate others to train. So I use the example of the movie Rocky Four when he's out there in the snow and running and chopping the wood and lifting the boulders and the music's
sure,
playing and everything. I see that and I'm ready to go ahead and hit the mats and get to work. So, what is something that
right,
motivates you or something you want to put out to motivate others?
right. I guess it's something that I kind of learned again from that same gentleman I was just talking about, but also learned through a lot of experiences in my life, both on the mat and off the mat, which is that we often kind of make ourselves uh, more afraid than we have to be, or we make ourselves more, we tell ourselves stories about ourselves that are not true about what we can accomplish. Uh, on the mat and off the mat, think we see somebody doing something really cool in martial arts, and we say, "Oh, there's no way I can do that." But people can. People do it all the time, right? That person that you saw, unless it's computer generated, that person's doing that thing, and people can do those things. And whenever whenever you train, you don't necessarily see the steps along the way to get from where you start to the cool thing that you see, but that ladder exists, that stairway exists, right? And um, the thing that I guess keeps me coming back time over time is the sort of belief that I'm not going to kind of let myself be in any smaller version of myself than I absolutely can get away with. I'm going to be the sort of largest, most competent version of myself that I can possibly be, and I'm gonna keep being that way for a long period of time. I've said before, you're gonna have to drag me kicking and screaming into being old age and decrepit, because I'm gonna keep doing martial arts, and I'm gonna keep training myself and trying to keep myself in as good a position as I can throughout my whole life, because that's just the kind of person I want to be. Not that I'll never age at all, but I'm not gonna just sort of draw a line under where I was, when I get to, because I'd have friends who'd say, "Oh, when you get to 30, that's when it all goes downhill." And I got to 30, and I said, "Oh, it's okay. It's not that bad." And they're like, "Oh, well, actually, it's 35." And you get to 35, that's when it all goes downhill, and you can't do anything anymore. And I got to 35, and I said, "Oh, I don't know. I'm a little more tired sometimes, a little more sore sometimes, but I seem to be okay. I still seem to be able to do most of what I used to be able to do." So, the goalposts keep moving, and I'm sure Father Time will get me eventually. But I'm not going to sort of draw a line under what I've been. I'm going to keep striving to be the greatest version of myself that I can be. So,
Very nice. Very nice. Yes, I like it. I like it. All right. So we are now at our very final piece of business for our time today, and that is shameless self promotion. So you can plug anything that you'd like, or if there's anything that we hadn't
sure.
covered that you wanted to make sure to get out there, you now have the floor, and then we will close out from there.
Sure. Yeah. No. Uh, That's great. Yeah, we have our school that you're a part of, Knorr's Academy. Website is knorrsacademy.com, Knorrs Academy.com. On Facebook, I think we have an Instagram account. I don't know. Corinne handles a lot of that stuff. My lovely wife, who you know well, she handles that a lot of that kind of stuff for me a little bit more, so that my tiny dumb meathead martial arts brain doesn't have to think about it as much. But we're knorrsacademy.com, and we're there on Camp Bowie in Fort Worth. Yeah, that's that's where we are and what we're about.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to be on and sharing your story. I I
Thanks
just
for
love.
inviting me.
Oh yeah, of course. You have an open invitation anytime you want to get on and chat about other things. We can definitely do that. But yeah, I just thank you for your time and sharing your story. I think the listeners are gonna enjoy it. I also thank you for the training. I will actually we'll be meeting up here
Absolutely.
shortly to get our falls and our sugi in and all that good stuff. So
All right.
looking forward to that. And yeah, just once again, thank you for your time, and we will chat soon.
All right, sir. Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.